Bernstein Show. Here's Ed.
Hey, we're here at the Underground Speakeasy and Distillery over by the Mob Museum. With me are two gentlemen with amazing, amazing backgrounds. Sitting next to me, Billy Queen, and next to Billy is Edward Follis, but I know he also goes by Ed and Eddie, and Edward, like I do, depending on who's calling you, right?
Yes, sir.
But look, I don't even know who to start with here. I mean, you both have lived undercover for a significant period of times. You, Ed, with in the international world with Hezbollah and some terrorist groups and Qaeda. You, Billy, with motorcycle gangs as well as Ku Klux Klan and some, local for, groups in the United States and Mexico, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And let me ask you, Billy, because we had a motorcycle gang called the Mongols that you infiltrated.
Familiar with them, yeah.
When we say infiltrated, how you became one? You became a brother.
I did.
You became one of them, and I assume you had to do a lot of illegal things in becoming one.
I didn't just become one, I became an officer in that gang. And yes, there's a lot of difference between what people see on TV and reality out there on the street. You're talking about organizations, whether it's international organizations or organizations like the Mongols. If you're going to play the game and you think that you're going to go in and be different than anybody else in that gang, you're not. They'll see right through you. They've been doing it for years and years. There's no such thing as time out.
But how do you prepare for that? I mean, what you're really saying is that you can't be an actor. You have to become that person.
Yeah. You have to understand. You have to understand the criminal world and the criminal mind. If you don't even try it. You also have to really understand that if you're going to play by the rules, what the government sets up, and they have no rules, you're not going to be successful either. When you go in, you're going to have to understand that you're going to have to be just like the gangsters. And you're going to have to make that line in the sand. If the government, the United States Attorney's Office don't do it for you, you're going to have to do it yourself. My line in the sand was murder and rape. But anything else that came up, I was going to do to get in that gang, and I did. And that's the only way you're going to be successful. Whether you're somebody like Ed, penetrating international narcotic organizations, anti-government organizations, you got to understand that. You got to be willing, and your organization has to be willing. Or at least they have to understand what's going to have to be done to be successful.
What was your background prior to that?
Well, I've been working undercover operations for 17 years. As a matter of fact, Ed and I were working undercover operations in the drug communities in Los Angeles before he became so prolific undercover and international. We were chasing bad guys on the streets of Los Angeles. And I had penetrated the Ku Klux Klan, became a member of the Ku Klux Klan, the West Coast Nazis, the National Alliance, and made an arrest in those organizations too. I could play that part. Now, certain things I can't do. I could never play the part of a doctor undercover. I don't have the background, don't understand it. A chemist or some type of an expert in some field that I have absolutely no knowledge of at all. I know what my limitations are, and you have to know that going into an organization like the Mongols or like these international drug organizations.
And Ed, when you went into the international drug organizations that Billy's referring to, you have different cultures and different languages involved, right? I mean, so did you speak the language?
You picked up on everything, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you don't look like you don't look like an Arab to me.
He does, kinda.
At least he's got a beard.
The international language, I speak fluent Thai, Chao Chu Chinese, Spanish pretty good, and story to get by, you know.
And so you grew up speaking these languages, or you learned them?
I was a simple St. Louis son of a cop who jumped on his Honda CB 750 Custom and rode out to boot camp and became a Marine. And then thereafter, I moved into, you know, this interest and was a CID agent and continued that. And I was allowed to attend college and so forth. Then I was recruited and went to DEA. I was actually a Marine for like 3 months while I was in DEA and moved forward into DEA. And then I just had this, you know, this extreme interest in the whole world of not just undercover, but, you know, serving something higher. I don't mean that in a trite way. A lot of people say, oh, you serve a higher cause. No, I mean, I really serve my country. And everybody has a talent that's different from another to serve their country. One may be in the front line of the battle, one may be a chemist, one may be as an IT guy. It don't matter. I knew this is what I was to do. So I went forward, and then I was in LA. I met Billy, my first day on the job, and we had a task force, ATF and DEA, you know, and we were just all brothers. And I mean, I cut my teeth, learned it all for 4 years with them.
So you're a former alcohol, tobacco, firearms?
No, I'm a former Marine who became a DEA agent. He's
okay.
Yeah.
DEA. I
Yes,
get
sir.
confused. You're
Yes,
the
sir.
ATF. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, he's touting that Marine stuff, you know, so I'm going to say I was Army.
Okay. All right. I mean, you
yeah.
can't let
Special
get one up
Forces,
here.
Vietnam. Special Forces, Vietnam.
But you work in something called narco-terrorism. I just finished reading a book. It was fiction recently about Syria. And in the book, it was fiction, they were talking about how the entire economy of Syria, and it was kind of in current day Syria, is based on drugs. That's all they manufacture in Syria. That's how they get all the money in Syria. And when you hear about terrorism and the fanaticism of terrorists, I wonder, is it about the money or is it about the ideology?
If it's not to a higher cause that you can only attain by your conduct and how you push forward in your own mind pursuit, it's always about the money. There's none of them that will die for their cause in any capacity. Hezbollah, the opium warlords of Thailand, the Mexican Federation, I work quite a bit down there. Not one of them will fall on the sword or put themselves in absolute peril if there's not an attachment of money. Take the money away, bye-bye. And that's why, because drugs, you know, probably the second leading generation of funding and money around the globe. Like in Syria, as you mentioned, there they import the raw materials, process them out of Lebanon, the Bekaa Valley, and that's an amazing place. And then they sell them abroad, and they also use that for their, you know, their recruits and so forth. And they may say they justify their narco-terrorism, their narco-political, their narco-marketable pursuits in life that better the people. They don't. There's nothing about the people involved. It's about while they scream that it's all about their cause, the money is being funneled to Liechtenstein and Switzerland and Sweden and Hong Kong and all over the globe. They always have, I guess we would call it in our world, a golden umbrella. I mean, no, wait, I made a mistake. Golden parachute. So all their cause and what they pursue and living the lives that they do, they always got an exit to go, and that's it.
So the customer, is it the United States and Europe primarily that they're looking at to bring these drugs into?
And in Asia now, methamphetamine, it's called Yama, and that's producer. That's the consumer market. Enormous. And then we're talking about with cocaine and fentanyl. It's the U.S. and Europe. Why? They have the money. They have the money to pay for that indulgence.
When you're doing deals, whether with cartels or whether with motorcycle gangs, it takes money to support this, right? I mean, you're buying drugs. You're on behalf of the government, I guess. How does that work? I mean, is there a budget, or You have an upcoming drug deal for, it's going to cost you, $5 million or $1 million bucks. Is the money easy to access from the government? And do we lose a lot of money that way?
Let me say something at this time, and let me ask Ed if it would be appropriate to talk about the operation that we did, Arms for Heroin.
Sure, and that would parlay right into, when you don't have money, you provide services, and the services are just important for that trade as the cash that goes forward. You need to insert yourself not as the big $2 billion buyer, that's hyperbole, but it's the services you provide that makes it safe on the logistical
getting from point A to point B.
And all that goes into it, which is much more complicated than the actual undercover role itself. So when you're able to provide that, they glob onto you. And when you prove it one time, maybe two, that's it, you're in. Because they don't have that in their industry, so.
Ed and I worked together, ATF, DEA, on probably, you can correct me if I'm wrong, one of the most sophisticated undercover operations the United States has ever done. That's a sophisticated armament, surface-to-air missiles, wire-guided missiles, tons of explosives and stuff that we were trading.
To whom?
To the Shan people in the Golden Triangle area, Southeast Asia.
We nicknamed him Rutger Hauer, cold blue eyes, German, who married into the Thai family aristocracy or kingdom. He was married to an extended cousin. And Billy put the case together with him and his associates. He wanted to trade 70 units of Southeast Asian heroin for armament. Like you said, I was a baby agent just on a job, and Billy pulled me in. And the trade was, Warhawk missiles, man pads. We have all these pictures of it. And he convinced the Army, the United States Army, to give us, these weren't make-believe. These were super weapons of war. Yeah. And we brought him in, and he got to view it,
What did they want to do with the armaments?
Well, they were, the Shan people at that time wanted to be autonomous. And they had an army. And part of this deal was to supply that army, the Shan people, and you can say that particular area that they were in, they were asking for the United States to back them in their autonomy. Matter of fact, DEA had gone in overseas and had been able to take pictures of confidential or secret communications between those people and the White House here, which scared ATF to death. But they did, and they were really trying to get the United States to recognize the Shan people as an autonomous group, a country themselves. And we're inside, and we're doing that. However, I don't know whether it was DEA that passed it on and made them aware of who they were dealing with, but at that time, I believe it was the Vice President of the United States stepped up and said, "No, we're not going to recognize you. You're a drug organization." But they were one of the most sophisticated operations in the world at that time. They were able to, with their intelligence, that case wasn't successful because their intel people found out who we were. And it could have been guys killed overseas or even here in the United States. But they were pretty smart. They came up with a bunch of pictures and stuff of all this armament stuff, went to the United States Attorney's Office, threw it down on the desk. Everybody knew that the gig was up. But it was, without getting into the things that we did that might jeopardize investigations today, an incredible undercover operation that was put together. There's nothing that we can't do in the United States. It all comes down to the will of the leadership, political and law enforcement, to make things happen. But there's nothing that we can't do. And that case proved it.
Well, there's nothing that you can't do, but it involves significant danger. to you, to Ed, to do it.
Of course.
At the time that you began doing these, going undercover, you guys, you had families?
Sure.
You had children?
Sure.
Wives? How do you balance that and make that decision? Because you know that even if you're not jeopardizing your family, you're jeopardizing potentially yourself as the head and protector of that family.
You do the same thing when you join the United States Marine Corps or you join the Army.
Okay, sure. But they're not going after you. Join the Army. A terrorist is not going after your wife.
Yeah. Yes. You hope that's not going to happen, and you can volunteer yourself to go behind enemy lines within the United States of America. And in my situation with going under on the Mongols, I never thought for a minute that I would get so deep that my family would be at risk, but it did. And then you get to a point where you're at a point of no return. You got to keep going. Once you get to a point where people are going to go to jail, maybe for life, then they got everything in the world to lose. And then the jeopardy is there. And what do? Back out? Say, I quit now? Mm-hmm. No, you can't.
And you were so involved. Can I see the leather? Yeah. You want to explain this?
Those are the Mongol colors. 3-patch, like almost all outlaw motorcycle gangs, whether it's the Hells Angels, the Vagos, the Outlaws, the Bandidos, that's the way that they roll.
And you got involved specifically with the motorcycle gang at the time. You guys were bikers at the time, right? I mean, you both rode bikes? That's what I I heard. Yeah.
Rode bikes all my life.
Yeah. So it was, you knew somewhat of the culture.
Yes.
Right. So, okay. And are the Mongols still around today?
Oh, absolutely. Right here in town.
And what were they doing? What were these characters up to in those days that you were involved with them? What kind of crimes?
Murder all the way down.
Murder to get money, or was it about money? Was it about something else?
Let me clear something up. They're outlaws. So murder is an accepted activity within the club. There's not that many murders that are committed in furtherance of the club. Now there is, obviously. If people remember the shootout down in Laughlin, they're going to kill as many Hells Angels as they can kill. As a matter of fact, they'll do that today. The hatred between the Mongols and the Hells Angels is profound to the point where they're expected to kill each other. And they will. That'll continue. But they kill other people too. Lots of times, people that are completely innocent. If you insult them, you're subject to be murdered. And when I was in, that happened to a person who insulted the Mongols at that time, and they killed him while I was in. Sent that guy to prison.
I assume when these gangs and cartels are recruiting members, they have different ways. I assume the cartels recruit differently than the Mongols would recruit. No, same.
Same incentivization to bring them up of where they are in the current standing, or part of a former organization, familiar line. But they develop a tribal mentality with their recruits, and they disassociate themselves from their former lives, and now they're part of that tribe. And when they do so, they demonstrate all of the treatments and incorporation that you do with your family, right? And many of them are disenfranchised, messed up from life, right? And they go, and then all of a sudden, they're receiving various accolades, and their esteem goes up. So they take the whole morality of what's going on, they throw that away. Now it's obsession with being part of the family. Every one of them are like a tribe, sir. Every one of them.
How is this different than the mafia, than the mobs in the United States? The same kind of concept, same idea, same family.
Yes, sir. Being a part in something higher than you, but not what you should aspire to be, right? You know.
You should understand that there's nothing that's more important. Once you decide
Right there.
and put those colors
Yeah.
on, the colors are number one in your life, not your family,
Not the country,
not your
nothing.
kids, nothing. That patch, and there's no such thing as timeout. There's no if the
That's great.
organization
No timeout. That's right.
is down for murder, then you're down for murder. You need to understand it when you go in. If they give you a command to go out and kill, then you got to go out and kill. If you don't, then you got held to pay.
So how did you avoid that, Billy?
Because he's smarter than everybody in the room all the time, but nobody knows it.
No, I'm gonna tell you, Ed.
Billy St. John was the guy sitting in there, and nobody had a clue. They thought he was a dummy.
I'm gonna tell you. Many times that I rolled during the night saying, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh my God, what am I going to do?" Because we were on our way to kill people.
Right.
And I would say, "Oh Lord God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?" Because if it came down to it, my line in the sand was murder, and now I'm on my way to murder people with the rest of these guys.
Right.
And I'm if I have to, I'll pull my gun and I'll shoot this guy that's going to murder this person. I'll shoot him. I'll shoot this next Mongol. But I knew I wouldn't get any further with that. They would kill me.
Right.
And I literally was on the way saying, "Oh God, what am I going to do? Oh God, what am I going to do?" And we lucked out. We couldn't find the victims that we were going to murder at the time, or something else happened.
We informed them surreptitiously, or we let them know to go away. But imagine the balance is hanging here, right?
It's intense. And when you went to undercover, how did they arrange all the fake background, ID, credit cards, driver's license?
I'm not sure that would be appropriate because that still happens.
That still happens, right? Are you in danger? I mean, are they, with technology being like it is today, it must be easier to try to figure out the background of somebody than it was 20 years ago?
Sure.
Yeah.
You got to know what you're doing when it comes to that too.
Right.
And the organizations, the DEA, ATF, and so on, have learned that the bad guys are getting smarter and smarter and have more intelligence than they had before, and you have to deal with it as an agency. And that's how they're able to continue to beat the organizations and the bad guys out there.
Yeah, they're talking about getting smarter. I wanted to ask you, Ed, about your opinion of what you thought about the walkie-talkies and the beepers that the Israelis loaded.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been even you guys were impressed, I think.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they worked on that for what, 16 years before they even effectuated it.
And it's just difficult for people to understand. They interrupted supply chains all over the globe. They anticipated that when they would begin to minimize communications with Iran, Lebanon, and Syria, to some degree, other fringe groups, that they were corralling them. They were like herding them into other alternate uses of communication. So they knew they were going to go there. So before it got there, they went out, interrupted the supply chain, engaged them, put in liquid, explosives that could not be detected in all of the beepers and the walkie-talkies, but also coffee makers. It's unbelievable, Ed. And they did that not knowing that it would yield at the end what they would need later. And then once they had that in place, it emboldened them when they had the approval of whatever powers. And when they did that, it's the worst surprise. I don't know if you ever had a surprise where it just knocks you down. You're like, how did I not understand that? That completely eviscerated, disemboweled the entirety of Hezbollah. I mean, just imagine, right?
Yeah, and now they're afraid to
There's
touch
nowhere
anything
safe.
electronic.
There's no place safe anymore. And that's why, they got the result. But think about that undercover operation. Interrupt supply chains and do what they did. It's remarkable. You're right. Everything you said is on the money. Yeah.
And you guys both have written some books and some memoirs in the past. You had, The Dark Art? Is it something
Yes, sir.
you wrote? our viewers want to get a little bit more insight and information into the
Yes, sir.
background. What did you write, Billy? I know you have your book
Under
down
and
here.
Alone. Under and Alone.
Under and Alone. And what is that like, being alone, guys?
Armed and dangerous too. Come on.
Yeah, I wrote another book called Armed and Dangerous also. Yeah. But Under and Alone is what we're talking about here today.
Yeah. And being alone, I mean, when you know that you're really out there alone, that you don't have a contact with the government, with law enforcement to really come and rescue you if you need it. Boy, I got 2 minutes left, and this is, I'm sure, an intense question. Sure. I mean, how's it feel?
Lots of times you're talking to God, oh my God, help me, oh my God, help me, oh my God. Whether you come out alive or not is not then how good you are. It's how good your cover had been, how good you were able to play the game. But if they were going to kill you, then they were going to kill you. You didn't have backup. And you knew that, and you had to be able to deal with that inside. Maintain your nerve. For me, it was understanding there's nothing I can do. If they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me here. There's no sense in panicking. There's no sense in giving up the gig, whatever. They're going to kill you anyway.
Well, it's unbelievable that two of you have put your lives in risk and in jeopardy, genuinely for the country. I mean, I get the feeling.
That's why. That's
you guys are authentic. You guys really believe that you're in the difference between right and wrong and what the United States stands for.
For our country. Yes.
And you, I mean, you just don't talk it. You walk it and live it, and have put your lives in jeopardy. And God bless you both for doing it, because I'm sure that you have saved countless other lives, unknowable what you have saved, because you don't know until when something is saved. But bless you both for doing it. And these are remarkable guys. They're down here at the they go to at the Mob Museum, and you hear all about these type of things at the Mob Museum, and they lecture around the country about these issues, and it's fascinating. You can't even write the things that these men have been through. So thank you so much, Billy. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you
for having us.
See you next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.